Gary Grappo joins me now. He served in various diplomatic posts in the Middle East, including in Saudi Arabia. He was U.S. ambassador to Oman from 2006 to 2009. He joins us from Winter Park, Florida. Sir, do you believe the Saudi story?
It's far too early to say whether one believes the story or not. Unlike President Trump, I'm a bit disturbed by the quickness with which the Saudis came forward with the results, the apparent results of their investigation. And we also have to keep in mind that the storyline from the government of Saudi Arabia appears to keep changing from denial to an interrogation gone wrong to now apparently an altercation that developed that led to the death of Mr. Khashoggi. I think, frankly, what they are telling us today raises far more questions than it really answers.
Also, if the official story is to be believed, that means that officials traveled to Istanbul for the purpose of interviewing Jamal Khashoggi, and all of this would have happened without Mohammed bin Salman knowing. Does that make sense to you? Is that credible?
No, it does not. At least two that we know, these individuals had very, very close ties and worked, in fact, directly for Mohammed bin Salman. And one has to wonder under whose orders they were traveling to Turkey and for what purpose. We still don't know the specific reason for the travel of not only these two individuals, but the rest of this team. Let's not forget, Mr. Khashoggi went back to the consulate to get a simple document, that is a copy of his divorce decree in Saudi Arabia. Why is an interview, much less an interrogation, even necessary in this kind of circumstance, much less of a 15-member team?
And look, as we examine the early returns from this Saudi investigation, I think there's something that needs to be emphasized each and every time. This really happened on Saudi sovereign territory, Saudi officials in the consulate. It's not an investigation, and I'm no professional here. It can't be very difficult to get to the bottom of what happened, at least for the Saudis.
Well, you would think that if this truly was an operation carried out without the knowledge of the senior officials of the Saudi government, then absolutely, it would not be that difficult. But in fact, the senior leadership of the government of Saudi Arabia has been implicated in this, and for that reason, I'm not sure that any investigation they conduct without some kind of oversight or supervision from the outside is credible. And I don't know that we'll truly get to the bottom of the story of what happened to this journalist. I will also say that by acknowledging in the way that they have Mr. Khashoggi's death, then they suggest that they may know the whereabouts of his remains. And my recommendation would be to have an independent team conduct an autopsy of those remains, and I suspect that we will learn a great deal about the circumstances of his death.
Yeah, they haven't provided any answers as to where his body, where his remains are. It seems to me this official story put out by the Saudis conveniently has a lot of upsides. At least two big things I can see are, number one, that this story insulates Mohammed bin Salman. It appears to have happened, officially at least, without him knowing. And number two, it gives both the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and even Turkey to a degree, a cover story on which they can base themselves to start moving on from this.
Well, if indeed that's what they are attempting to do, that is offer up a cover story, a whitewash, in order to insulate Mohammed bin Salman, then this indeed may be sufficient. But that assumes, of course, that the rest of the world, and I think in this case specifically the Saudis, are wanting the United States to accept this. And by accepting the results, the apparent results of an investigation that actually raises more questions than answers, would be a wrong course of action for the United States, that we would be seen as complicit in the cover-up. And that's something that the United States simply cannot afford to do. The country, the one country in the world that's always stood for rule of law, can now allow a transparent whitewash to fly as the explanation for what happened.
So what do you think the U.S. should do now, and what do you expect the U.S. will do?
It's hard to predict in the case of this administration what we will do. I don't know what the intentions of this administration are. Clearly, the U.S. relationship with Saudi Arabia is of strategic importance to the United States. I will also say, however, that it's even more important for Saudi Arabia. Their relationship with us, which is, by the way, the oldest one they have since the founding of the modern state of Saudi Arabia, is their foreign and national security touchstone. They cannot afford to get crosswise with the United States. We do have the upper hand, and we can continue to insist on a full and impartial investigation and let the results of that investigation lead wherever they might.
All right, Ambassador Grappo, thank you for your insights. Thank you for joining us here on the show.
You're welcome.